Welcome back to PALS TV. Next, we'll be heading down to Gallia County and joining our friends Rankin and Dave. The past 2 weeks, they've been doing terrific segments with us, going through the ceramics process and how it works. It's been absolutely fascinating. So we're going to really build off of that again today. If you wanted to go back and watch some of those previous episodes, you can go on our website, and underneath PALS TV, you'll be able to find weeks 1 and 2 of Ceramics with Rankin. See some new faces on here. That always makes me happy. So hi, Laura and Rose. Great to see you on here. And we're going to be heading down to your neck of the woods in Gallia County and joining Rankin and Dave for some ceramics. So Rankin, Dave.
See.
Hello, everybody.
Hello,
this is David. This is Rankin from Gallia County. How you doing? Give me a thumbs up if you're doing good today. All right. So we, the past few weeks, we've kind of talked about, for those who haven't been here, we'll just kind of do another overview today. So when you go to a store and you go to a ceramic section to buy something, like a ceramic piece or a piggy bank or something for your shelf, it always kind of looks like this, doesn't it? It's shiny and nice and neat and clean. Does that look familiar? Something like that you pick up at the store. So what our series has been about, we've been talking about how we make ceramics from raw materials to an actual piece like that. And so the past few weeks, we went through the steps of pouring the ceramics into a mold, taking the ceramics out, cleaning it up, and putting it into a kiln. And so today we're doing our kiln work. So we'll talk a little bit about the kilns. But before we do that, just a little bit of an overview. If you guys remember the frog from last week, so when you pour your ceramics into a mold and pull it out, it's called what? Does anybody remember? Greenware. That's before it goes into your actual kiln to be baked. After it comes out of the kiln, it's called, you guys remember what it's called after it comes out of the kiln? Bisque. Just think of like Bisquick. Greenware, I could crumble this up and add water to it and start over. The bisque, it's too late. I've already baked all the moisture out of it and it's hardened up. So, so our next step is actually talking about the kiln, fire and ceramics. And then we'll give you a little bit of a virtual tour of our actual ceramics department here. And then Rankin's got a couple extra things, and then he wants to show you. He's got a huge mold he poured the other day, and so we're kind of like, we kind of got a little bet going whether this mold's set up or not. So we'll do that at the end of the segment. So Rankin, go ahead. Let's talk a little bit about kilns.
Okay. You want to go over and look at this or start with
Let's start with the pieces of the kiln. So you want to hold them here so they can see.
Start with the big one.
So Rankin, what is the purpose of a kiln? What does that actually do to your greenware?
It bakes or takes the water out. You put it in the kiln, and you set your timer for 6 hours.
Okay.
You put your well, first you put this down in the bottom before you load it.
So,
but you set it on these so
okay.
it don't touch the bottom. These are little kiln stands. Put them over here, tiny small.
Okay, so when you put your pieces in the kiln, you just don't throw them down in there, do you? You got to have a section and shelving, or you'll bust your pieces. So the first thing you want to do is put these little ceramic pieces down in your kiln. They're called, what is these called, legs?
Yeah.
For your shelf. So these are called shelf legs, and they go inside your kiln. And what you do, there we go. What you do is you set your shelf legs up at the bottom of your kiln, like
In a triangle will work.
kind of like a triangle.
Yes.
Okay, so you have a triangle because you don't want anything touching the floor of the
You
kiln.
set them on there like that.
Okay, so then what you do is put your bottom shelf on your kiln. Okay.
And if you have more than what will fit on your bottom shelf,
So we're going to pretend we're actually in the kiln. So what you would do is you got your bottom shelf set up. So then you would start putting your pieces on your shelf. So you would start setting, how far apart do you want to set your pieces?
As long as they don't touch.
As long as they don't touch.
As long as you can get some air between them.
Why is that?
That we don't want them to fuse together when they're drying
Okay,
out.
so you don't want some kind of like mutant frog pig when these come out of the kiln. So if they're touching, it's going to become one piece. So what you want to do is get them far enough apart so the air will flow around through them and they won't touch each other and fuse.
Legs are tall enough.
Okay, that's fine.
Go over top of it.
So what you want to do is load your bottom shelf with all your greenware pieces. Now, does that look like there's enough on there? Or?
We had some smaller ones we could fill in the spaces.
So if you had some like smaller ones, you could kind of put them
Yes.
here and there. Okay. So
We kind of keep them, or you can pull them out like you put that one in the middle if you wanted to.
okay. Would it be a good idea to put all these here about this height, then put a really tall one in the middle?
If you don't use your shelf, it wouldn't hurt it.
Okay. So you want to kind of keep your pieces all about the same level.
Yes.
Okay.
But if you had to use your shelf, it'd have to be about
Okay.
the same size.
So we're only going to fire 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces for this segment?
Yes.
Okay, so fortunately we don't have to put a second shelf, but if Rankin had like a big order of ceramic pieces and he needed to fire more than those 5, what he would need to do is get some more of those, remember those shelf legs? And they'd have to be taller. We don't have any tall enough right now, but they'd have to be about 4 or 5 inches higher here so we can put another shelf up. So what you can do, there we go, is you can build your shelving and then he would put a second shelf
You
up.
can put this one like this and stack on it.
And then you'd stack more pieces. So,
And if you needed a third one, you can do that.
okay.
We would use a smaller one.
All right.
And that would be getting close to the top.
So are you guys the ones that have been here since the first episode? You kind of excited to see how this is going? How we went from just kind of like raw liquid to actual pieces? Okay, so Rankin, once you put your piece in the kiln, how long does it take your kiln to get heated up enough to actually start baking your piece? Is it kind of like putting a pizza in the oven, or is there a different process?
It's a different process. You start it out on the low.
Mm-hmm.
You set the timer for 6 hours.
Okay.
Start it out on low for 2 hours. Then after 2 hours, you turn it up on the medium.
Okay.
Then after 2 hours, you turn it up on high.
Okay, so your first phase would be 6 hours.
It's altogether 6 hours.
Okay, so your first phase would be 2 hours.
Yes.
Okay, so what do you know the temperature these bake at?
Yep, right here.
Okay.
We usually use the cone for, that's between 1,046 and 1,063 degrees.
So these,
That's when it gets up on high.
so these pieces here, when they're in the oven baking, they're around 1,000 degrees. It's pretty hot, isn't it? Considering what's a regular oven go up to around 500 for when they clean it. Okay, so how do you set your timer on that? So you set every 2 hours, you set it, you put your pieces in, you set your timer.
I'll show you the dial.
Okay.
If you want to come.
Okay, well,
Whenever
so-
we go over.
okay,
I'll
we could
show
do
you
that.
how we set it.
so you set your pieces, you set your temperature,
Set your,
then you goes back every 2 hours and adjusts it.
and these are the cones we use for the inside. These are like a little timer.
So-
Inside the kiln.
A lot of your kilns as a safety feature. You got one that's broken, that's kind of broken apart. These are fused together.
Let me find.
Oh, never mind. So a lot of times, a lot of your fancier kilns have a timer on them, and as a safety feature, some of them have what's called a cone. And so what this cone is. You guys see that? Give me a thumbs up if you can see that.
If not, we got some bigger ones.
Okay, so what you do is you set your timer and then you put this cone in your kiln. Okay, and so this is kind of a safety feature. It kicks your cone off. So when your kiln hits a certain temperature, this cone melts and causes a little lever to come down and switch your, turns your kiln off. So the smaller the cone, the sooner your kiln's going to kick off. See that bigger one there? It's going to take a lot more to melt it, isn't it? Because it's bigger. So that will stay on a lot longer than the smaller one. So when someone talks about ceramic cones, that's what they're talking about.
And we have different sizes depending on what you're trying to bake.
So
the greenware is usually baked on a cone form, which is this.
that's cone 4.
That's a 3. That's even.
And then this is a 12 here. 12. The 12 is about 3 times
I've
bigger.
never used that. Never had to.
Okay.
This is a 6. That's for your ceramic or
Okay.
your glaze.
Okay.
A 5 and a 6 will.
There's a 6. You see that the 6 is just a little bit bigger than the 4.
And here's a 5.
Okay.
Them's the 3 we basically use.
Okay.
The 4, 5, and the 6. Depending
Okay.
on what the glaze you use. Usually the glaze, they put them in the kiln for on a 5 or a 6 cone.
Okay.
So they don't burn off.
Okay.
So when you put the glaze in there, it will melt and fuse to the body of the ceramic piece that you've painted.
Okay. So are you guys ready to see Rankin load up the kiln and show you how it works? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to see that. Okay, I see some thumbs up out there. Okay, me too. I want to see them. I'm excited. All right, so what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to flip the camera around here, and we're going to watch Rankin in action, and we're going to take a little bit of a virtual tour of our ceramics department.
Yes. Really small.
Okay, you guys still see things pretty good? Okay, so I'm going to follow Rankin over to the kiln. Okay, now first thing, Rankin, before you come into the kiln, I want to show them the cage we have. So if you guys see, Rankin's stepping into a cage area. Can you guys see that pretty good? Give me a thumbs up if you can see it. I know there's kind of a glare. Okay, so first thing we talk about with the kiln, you guys remember, how hot did that kiln get? 1,000 degrees. So as a safety measure, the first thing we do here is we have that kiln locked up behind a cage. See that there? And that cage is locked at all times. Anytime someone's in the building, that cage is locked. That's one of our rules here with the ceramics. And so nobody's allowed in the kiln area unless it's Rankin. He's the only one we have that's qualified to be back here. Our folks in our program, they are not responsible, but they have they take part in every part of our ceramics and making them, except for operating the kiln. It's just really dangerous because it's a really hot kiln. So as a safety procedures, we just make sure that Rankin is the only one that goes back there and is in the cage area. So that's our first step for safety, is to have this cage around it. We have the cage locked up at all times. We have a key for this. We have a spare hidden. The key stays on Rankin, and if he's not in there loading up, this thing's locked up. So that's safety number 1.
And it do get hot.
So you walk in, you see I have a spare kiln there that someone donated to us. And then I have a working kiln here, and then I have another smaller kiln here. This one here is more for like jewelry, glass works, things like that. We haven't really got into that yet. So you come over, here's the kiln. You got the lid right here. If you look down inside the kiln,
You see them little channels right there?
You want to take all that out because I'll have get a shot of you actually loading it up. So the inside of the kiln's got this like a ceramic-y type brick. It's real soft and brittle, so you don't want to hit it too hard. But it withstands the heat up to like what 1,500, 2,000 degrees. So
Somewhere in there.
okay, so I step over here. Here's some of the features of the kiln as far as your temperature settings.
This is called the kiln setter.
It's called the kiln setter. Okay.
This is how you set everything up.
Okay.
Can use. Let me get.
So right there, we talked about that cone.
Got the cone right here in my hand.
He's got the cone. Yep. Okay, he's setting his kiln.
Make sure it's set on low. Both dials.
So let me ask you, Rankin, why do you set it on low first?
You don't want to heat your ceramics up too fast or they will break.
They'll explode on you because of the moisture.
And you set this for 6 hours.
Okay, so he just set the timer for 6 hours.
Can you see down in here?
We'll do an angle from here. So this is where, right here's where your
There's where the little
cone goes on the inside, right there. So okay, let's have this. So when the cone melts, that switches off and that turns your kiln off right there. That's pretty simple, basic, isn't it? That's how it works.
And there's how you set.
Okay, so see how the cones, the switch is staying up, so the cone's in there. Okay, he's got it set to low. And once again, he sets it on low, heats it up slowly, because what will happen is if you heat this up too fast, too quickly, that moisture in your ceramic pieces will start to like expand and break your pieces. Okay, now Rankin's going to bring his shelf over. If you remember, that's your shelf legs right there, because you don't want anything touching the bottom. And he's going to come over and load up the shelf.
Be careful not to knock that little switch here. Okay, make sure we don't teeter.
Okay, now he's ready to bring in his greenware pieces. Notice Rankin's sporting his PALS hats today too. There's your 2 piggy banks so far and your frog. See, they got the space between them.
You could, if you wanted to, set them a little closer.
Okay.
If you need to put more in it. As long as they're not touching, you're okay. We can actually do that. You're only going to use one shelf. Fill it up as much as you want to. The smaller the pieces, the more you can fit in there.
So are those just for like just a visual example?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So see that there, the wider ones are already baked out, but he's showing you how you can arrange your pieces on your shelf right there. So that looks like a pretty good load right there. It looks like they got a good distance.
Yes.
So, okay.
And I'm not going to fire it up.
Okay. So
But
and now Rankin's shutting the lid on the kiln, and now we have a second safety feature for our ceramics here. And so we had a latch installed on it right here. So once he turns this kiln on, we lock it up, and nobody, even if someone wanted to climb over the cage for some reason and open up the kiln because they're curious, they wouldn't be able to, because now it's locked up. So if you're in the middle of,
But if you wanted to check on your stuff there, which
Okay.
I would not recommend,
So-
look, viewports here.
so this isn't like baking normal things like in an oven where you're curious, you want to come over and open the door to see how done the piece is. Like once you shut this kiln and turn it on, you don't open it up. So because you've got over 1,000 degrees of hot air in that little compartment there, if you open it up, it's gonna be bad news. So that's why we have that lock on there.
The electricity stays turned off on this all the time.
And also, if the kiln's not in use, we leave it unplugged, just so you know. It's a third measure for safety, just so somebody couldn't once again jump over the cage and mess around with it. So that will never be turned on unless Rankin's doing it.
Nobody knows it. There we go. We never.
So there you
It
go.
won't work. You got to flip the switch on the breaker box.
And these kilns do run off 220 volts, so you just can't take them anywhere and plug them in. And also, if you notice, where we have the kiln, we have it set up kind of away from the wall because you don't want it too close to any other area. So there's a good space between the kiln and the wall, between the kiln and the cabinet.
Also, man, it's a concrete floor.
Got a good space between the kiln and the fencing. And it's on a concrete floor, yeah.
It's not recommended to put a kiln on the wooden.
Yeah, because it gets so warm, you don't want it on wood. Okay, so now the kiln's on, and so Rankin, you'll come back when?
2 hours.
So Rankin will come back in 2 hours, and then he will adjust his heat up to the next level.
Turn it up on
What, medium?
medium.
Okay.
Yeah, make sure you get it on medium.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. And then 2 hours after that, he will come in and turn it up on high. Now, Rankin, so after 6 hours, what happens?
It'll kick itself off.
Okay.
Do not touch it.
Okay.
It takes 8 hours for it to cool down before you can open it.
Okay.
If you open it up before then, you'll probably get burnt and all your ceramics will crack. You can't cool
So
them down too fast.
if you put a piece in at, say, 8 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock it's done, and then you can't open that kiln up until about what? 8 o'clock that evening,
About 10.
10 o'clock, 10 p.m. that evening. So you just want to come in the next day pretty much.
Yes.
Then, okay.
Usually like to leave it overnight.
So when Rankin bakes a piece, when he'll kiln these pieces today, then he'll come in tomorrow morning and open it up, see how they turned out. So has there ever been a time that you've come in and the pieces are broken, or?
They will break in the kiln.
Okay.
I've had that happen a couple of times, but not very often.
Okay. All right. All right. So we're going to follow Rankin out of the cage, and then Rankin's going to show us what he does as soon as he walks out of the cage. His first thing he does is he locks it. Oh, wait a minute, Rankin.
Oh, what we forget.
Okay, so Rankin exits the cage and he locks it. And that's the process for kilning, baking our ceramic pieces. And generally, we don't really use the kiln when we have a lot of people in the building. We just, it's a safety thing for us. It's, we have a couple levels of safety, but still, yeah, like we just
Usually
can't emphasize enough, how safe we want to keep it with that. So, okay, we're going to take you now on a virtual tour, kind of show you. I know we've been working on the table the whole time right here, But normally we kind of have a little bit of a setup where we have a little bit of a system where we have sections. So what we'll do is we'll go to, Rankin's carrying a mold over there. When we make our ceramic pieces, what we do is we will go to Columbus and pick up the ceramic slip, which if you guys remember from the first week, it's in kind of like a liquid form, kind of like a melted thick chocolate milkshake looking material. Okay, so there you go, there's your slip. If you guys remember that dried out part, that's that piece that broke a couple of weeks ago we stuck in there. So we bring it in and it comes to this section here, and this is where we do our mixing. And if you notice, there's a little bit dirt all over the floor. It's kind of hard to keep your ceramics department clean, but so Rankin will, hold on just a second there, Rankin. So Rankin will come in, he'll take his box of slip, and he'll come over to this section here. If you notice, it's a little bit dirtier here. It's harder to clean up because he's using that drill. So that's kind of why we assigned that area to the drill, just so we wouldn't spread so much of the dust around. So he gets a slip, he pours it in a bucket, and he mixes it to the consistency it needs to be. So Rankin, when your slip comes in, can you use just like a stick to stir it, or what do you need to stir it?
You can use a stick, but it's faster.
Can you show them what you stir it with? The drill. Yeah. So pretty much what this is, it's a big paint stirrer, and so
it makes things faster.
It's an industrial size paint stick or stirrer. So I get a good angle of it here.
But you can use a stick.
And that just mixes it up pretty quickly for you. So don't wear your arms out.
And don't do like I did.
What?
You remember the modeling clay?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that little cheese cubes and made slip out of it.
Okay, so he ran out of slip and got desperate, used the modeling clay, which is really, really thick slip. Okay.
It takes forever to stir that up.
Okay, so Rankin will mix the slip up, then he'll move over to the next section here.
I'm trying to keep the mask on.
So he puts his drill back okay, so then he moves the slip over to the mold pouring table. And so right here, you'll see this is where we line up all the molds and pour them right here. This whole table's set up for pours. Normally you'd see molds lined all the way down the table, but just for demonstration purposes, we're leaving the table empty.
Remember, make sure your rubber bands fit.
Okay, so if you guys remember, we poured you got your timers too?
Yes.
Okay, if you remember, we poured molds a couple weeks ago. And so I know a few folks might be new here and haven't seen what it looks like when we pour molds. So we're going to go back today and kind of revisit pouring the molds. Okay, so what mold is that? What is that?
The unicorn.
Okay, that's the unicorn. So he's going to pour another unicorn today. So if you remember, take a look at your slip. What's it look like? About like
buttermilk.
Buttermilk. Okay.
Roughly.
So I'm going to come over here so I can get a better angle for everybody. Okay, so actually it's better this way.
I'm trying to put it all the way where you can see.
Okay, so
made a mess.
That's all right. We got a lot of cardboard that we used.
That
catch it. Yeah, it catches all that slip.
Oh. Can do that again for Troy.
Okay, so he's got his mold poured. Remember, he tamps it down. He taps on a little bit. You guys remember why? Gets all the air bubbles out. Okay.
Now I want to show you what happens when one of your rubber bands break.
Okay, so did you set the timer?
Oh, I forgot.
Okay, so he sets a timer for 10 minutes, and what will happen during that 10 minutes is this slip's going to gather and collect to the mold and kind of stick to it. So the longer you set your timer, the thicker your piece is going to be. So 10 minutes is kind of an average. So now what is this right here?
This is an Indian.
This is an Indian.
I poured it last Tuesday.
Okay.
Got it halfway full of slip. And the bottom rubber band broke.
Okay. So we've been kind of debating back and forth whether this
I don't think
Native American worked out or not this time, Rankin.
I don't think it was going to. I don't think it's one of them parts.
You need a screwdriver or something to pry it? Okay.
And it didn't.
Reckon that's an angel, isn't it?
It's, if she turned it over.
Does he have wings?
Yes.
Okay. So
Oh,
maybe
it
it's
didn't.
okay. So
It split.
it looks like his piece did not turn out. Remember how we told you sometimes you pull them out and then they would just not work?
And
Well,
this one did not work because the whole bottom came out.
okay, so we do have a head came off. There he goes, head came off.
Here's the good part. Well, if I can get him out.
Okay, so
That piece did come out.
the whole dog's head worked out for him.
I kind of expected that though.
Okay, so you remember that we told you, it's kind of disappointing when you do a mold like this. And another thing, this is a real detailed mold. If you see, there's a lot of pieces to it, a lot of crevices. Those are the harder ones to pour and be successful with because there's so many little details, and it's harder for those
And
to.
from here down is where it split open and
Okay.
the slip came out the
So,
sides.
but we went over. It is disappointing when this doesn't turn out, but you can always take that extra slip right there, throw it back in your bucket, and do it again. So you're not really out any money, but you are out time.
And this will peel right up most of the time. But I knew this one wasn't going to turn out real good. I didn't figure it would. Because I had a puddle about this big around on and miraculously none hit the floor.
Okay, hey, you want to finish the tour real quick?
Okay.
Okay, so this is the pour table. You can see what he just did here. This is where he pours everything, and then, okay, he's going to top off his mold again. There must have had some air pockets.
Okay.
Okay. Hear the timer clicking. Okay, so we'll take you over to our mold section here. So we've got about 250, maybe close to 300 molds. So we've got all kinds of sizes. We've got everything from the really big ones that are about 1.5 feet to tiny, tiny, like Christmas tree ornament size. Get another angle for you guys.
Here's
Okay.
real small pieces.
So here's some of your smaller detailed molds. Can you pick out a really big one to kind of show them the contrast? So you see how tiny that mold's kind of small. See how small those pieces will be. I think this is a nativity.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a nativity. Where'd it go? It's my thumb. There you go. And then you can go from a piece as small as that to, don't throw your back out. I'll just come to you. To something this big.
This is a big giant.
It looks like a
Santa
big,
Claus.
giant, old-fashioned, what is that?
Santa Claus.
Santa Claus. I don't think I've ever seen Santa Claus like that, but Santa Claus. Looks like his head. So that's about a 15-inch mold piece right there. You can see down here how big that one is. And then we've got seasonal. What are the seasons you've got here in your collection?
This stuff is, these two shelves is nothing but Christmas.
These are a lot of Christmas, and Christmas is probably one of your better times to make ceramics because people always want, like the nativities, they want something to hang on a tree, something to give someone for a present.
And we have, well, this is more Christmas stuff.
Okay.
And then here we got miscellaneous.
Okay.
This is for a lot of holidays. We've got rabbits.
So we've got Christmas, Easter. I know we've got Halloween molds.
Yes.
We got a turkey.
Yes.
Okay, we got a turkey, so we got some Thanksgiving molds.
Witches for Halloween.
Okay.
We have turkey napkin holders. Let's see. What this is. That's a rabbit head.
Okay, so that's Easter bunny head. Then we've got.
And we got a sun for 4th of July. Spring, that's a tulip. Little bears for all seasons. This is for Halloween. And then the other side over here, this is mostly body parts and humans and grandmas and grandpas. Here's a little teddy bear.
Yeah, we do have like a little teddy bears and ducks and things like that.
Here's a girl. And we have, here's some more people. I never actually poured this one. I might do that one evening to see what it looks like. Then around here, here's an apple, small one.
Mm-hmm.
Right here is where we got our dishes. I wish I knew what that was. Let's see. And this is miscellaneous baskets. The basket right here. There's a turkey.
That's your turkey right there. See the feathers. Okay. So we're going to step back over here to the table.
Yeah, I've got to go check on them.
And we'll have oh, I'm not, Rankin's got to finish up his mold here. Sorry. Getting ahead of myself. How many more minutes we got before this needs flipped over? 3 more minutes. Okay. Oh,
Timer's on.
okay.
But for the sake of the show, we'll go ahead and flip
Okay,
it.
so then what he's going to do is timer went off. So we got, remember, you got your split bucket here. He's going to pour this, turn this mold upside down, pour that excess slip out.
You don't want to pour it all at once or it might get stuck in there. That one will drain.
And then he'll reset his timer for an hour. And then he'll let that mold sit there for another hour. And then after an hour, he'll turn it right side back up, and then he'll go stick it in a dry room. We'll follow you to the dry room. So what we did, you know, when you set your molds up to dry out over a couple of days, you want to have the driest room you can. And so we found this office here in the building, and it's always hot in here and always dry. So we kind of made this the dry room. And so this is where he opens a lot of his molds and works on them.
I'll try and get this one out. It should pop right out, but it's being stuck.
And Rankin's got his mold book here. If he gets stuck on something, he needs to do a little research. He studies up on his pottery techniques, and then
It's split.
Then he also likes to read all kinds of neat books. What is this? Growth of the American Revolution. Rankin likes history too.
It's split.
Andersonville.
Oh, them were free from the public library.
He likes free books. So if you have any free books you want to send us, he'll read them. Used to be some Mothman books in here too. He was reading.
They're at my house.
Okay.
I'm studying up for when Jonah comes down to see Mothman.
So anyways, this is the drying table here. And it's just an average room, but this room seems like it's always hot. So
it helps them to dry better.
We just
keep the temperature.
Designated this as the dry room. Okay. Rankin, we're gonna head back to the station there, and we'll flip it around here, and we'll just we'll close out, maybe take a couple questions.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Okay, there we are. Okay, so that's pretty much the third step in making your ceramic pieces is working your kiln. And so that's the tour and how we're set up here. And next week, what we'll do is we actually will pull the pieces that we kiln today, and we'll paint a couple of them, and we'll do the glazes and show you the difference of those. And then that will be steps from taking a piece of ceramic from raw material to a finished piece. So does anybody have any questions or comments or anything? We got a couple of minutes, it looks like. So
I do air dry clay.
Okay.
And then I made this.
Okay.
And
Cool.
it's air dry clay because it dries faster than the heat thing.
Yeah, it does. This stuff here takes quite a while. It's really tricky to work with. That's cool though.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions for Rankin?
Clay. Clay is fun.
Clay is fun. No questions? Okay, well. Anything else to add today that we didn't cover?
We'll do the glazes next week.
Yeah, the glaze, that'll be the last step there.
I think we got one more question, Dave.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Kristen. Did you have a question?
Oh, hi. You ever make ceramic skulls?
Yeah, we have do you get the cow skull?
The what?
Cow skull.
Should have.
We don't have a human skull. That's actually a good question. But we do have like a cow skull. You want us to show that? If you got one, hold on a minute. Okay, Rankin left the building. Yeah, we have kind of like it looks like an old skull you find out in the cow field. It's got the horns on it. It's kind of neat. And what we do, oh, here it is. So I don't have a human skull, but we do have this. That's kind of cool.
Oh,
See
that's
that?
really cool.
Kind of like an ox
like
or a bull skull. And yeah, we make these quite a bit. Everybody likes to paint these. And somebody made one time that looked real because they had like a milky white look to it, and then the horns were kind of a different color. And somebody made one that was like red and black, but yeah, we got. Okay. And then
Dave, there's
one.
a viewer in Cleveland was wondering if you have any Bigfoot or Mothman molds or any of those.
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
We've talked
Mothman,
about that.
The
Jenna.
Mothman is kind of greedy, and he has some patent issues.
Yeah, copyrighted. We
Uh,
can't.
Bigfoot's too elusive, and we can't really see him.
He is hard to capture for a
I'll talk
mold.
to you next time we have a family reunion, see if you'll come up that way.
No, that's a good idea. I do think we've looked into the Mothman mold. We could Mothman have a chunk of change in his bank account to make a prototype. So
It's not cheap, man.
yeah.
Yeah, basically over in Point Blank.
Molds though, that was really cool. Thank you for giving us that tour and walking us through those. I like that Longhorn.
We'll send it to you if you like it. I can box it up, send it up to you.
Well, we have a couple requests in the Rankin, so we've talked. He knows what I'm looking for.
I know. I'm working on it.
I know
I
you
know
are.
what you're looking for. And one of them fell apart today.
Can't ask for anything easy. That was fantastic, gentlemen. Thank you for that. As always, a pleasure.
You're welcome.
That was our ceramics time down in Gallia County with Rankin. Another great episode as always, and we'll see them again here next week, same time. So thank you guys.
You're welcome.
All right.